Welcome back to the Autoblog Podcast. I'm Greg Migliore. We've got an awesome show for you this week. Happy 4th of July week. We're going to talk about all sorts of things. I've been driving the Mercedes EQE SUV, the Range Rover Velar, and we have an update on our Subaru WRX that has some STI accessories installed, which I can't wait to sample myself. News department's kind of all over the place. Our Associate Editor Byron Hurd has been up at close and personal with some Rivians. Crazy Taxi is back, and we'll talk about the latest in what is going on with the Volvo EX30. When is that thing going to get on sale? We will spend your money. It's kind of a mailbag question, and it's a fun one. So with that, let's bring in Associate Editor Byron Hurd. Welcome to the show.
Hello. It's good to be here.
All right. It is a holiday week. What do you grill on the 4th of July? What do you do?
We're gonna probably go up to the lake house this week. I was told before I moved to Michigan, they basically give you a lake house when you move here. I haven't gotten mine yet, but I started dating someone who has one, and that's just as good, right? So we're gonna go spend some time with her family up there, I think.
Sounds good. By the time you listen to this, we will be back, but we're going to spend some time in the UP. We're going to do some tent camping, so that will be, kind of rugged. We're going to take the long-term Mazda CX-90. So next week I'll have a Upper Peninsula test is what I'm going to frame this up as. My Upper Peninsula tests in the past have included our long-term Toyota Sienna, a Chevy Tahoe in some sort of, I think it was a police spec or something. That was a memorable one. I got a speeding ticket in that one. And a few other ones. The Chrysler Pacifica went up there. The Hyundai Palisade went up there. So the Mazda CX-90's got some big tires to fill. We're going to see how this thing can handle it. So it should be fun. Hopefully I don't get too many mosquito bites. But everybody's going. Family, dog, they'll be back and, time to kind of rest up on the weekend. So
nice.
With that, let's talk about what we've been driving. I just literally got out of the Mercedes EQE 350 Plus. This is the crossover for Mercedes that rounds out the electric side of its portfolio. And it comes in at $86,750. For that, you get 307 miles of range. Interior is the thing that really struck me, as well as many well-equipped Mercedes. This one had a champagne kind of leather setup, darker seats. It's got the big Mercedes screen in the middle, some really chill blue ambient lighting. Just a beautiful space to spend time. The Mercedes sort of personal assistant, hey Mercedes, as you can yell out for whatever reason you may want to, takes care of everything you do. So that's kind of cool. Some other specs, 288 horsepower and 417 pound-feet of torque. Cargo hold is reasonable. I didn't have any reason to give it my full-on dad's tests with groceries, soccer, golf clubs, stuff like that, just because I've only had it for about a week. For one night. Zach Palmer, our road test editor, will be putting it through its paces for the rest of its time with us, and then I'll be getting into that long-termer, the Mazda. So I like this a lot. I think it could be the right vehicle for a lot of people looking to get into an EV with an established brand. I don't think it gets much more established than Mercedes, which has been around since 1886 in some form. I think their electrical setup, I think there's a fair degree of competence there. I think they've done a lot of good things on the software side as well. You see that kind of comes through with the infotainment and also the under the skin stuff. So I really liked it. I think Mercedes has kind of divided their lineup into two sides. The electrics look a lot different than the gas cars or the hybrids. That's the one thing I would probably knock the EQE for a little bit, is it kind of looks like a blob. It's okay. I don't think it's offensive. It's kind of futuristic, but it's not very Mercedes other than the huge star on the grille. So have you driven any electric Mercedes recently?
I have driven, I think, 2 different variants of the EQE SUV at this point. I drove, I want to say the AMG last year.
Nice.
And I think I've also driven the EQE 450, if I'm recalling correctly off the top of my head. But yeah, my thoughts align pretty well with yours. The interior really outshines the exterior on these. The exterior styling leaves a lot to be desired, in my opinion. But I mean, typical Mercedes, a wonderful place to be inside, very good ride. Maybe not the best handling vehicles in the world, but I mean, they're heavy and they're geared toward comfort, luxury experiences. Even the AMG, is not meant to be a true, outright driver's car, but a high performance luxury vehicle. So, they suit their mission. I just wish they looked a little better.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think that's something they're going to have to evolve. They're going to kind of have to figure out, hey, for this first batch, they went different. They said, hey, we're going to make these look very much electric in identity. And I think they'll have to figure out, do they want to stay with that? Do they want to say, hey, maybe we make these look a little more traditional? I mean, to look, a study in contrast is BMW. You look at what they have, and I think their core audience prefers their approach, but I suspect more like new EV adopters might prefer Mercedes. So that's how I would kind of track it. It's well regarded too, according to basically everybody else who tests these things. People seem to really like the EQE. Yeah. So with that, let's move on to the Range Rover Velar. I drove the Dynamic SE version in, I don't know if I'm saying this right, Versailles blue with an ebony interior. So beautiful SUV. I'm working on a 5 points sort of story, 5 thoughts as far as, my take on this thing. I think this one, unlike, it's the exact opposite of the EQE. Outside is beautiful, inside's a little pedestrian, and the infotainment is just passable. So literally flip the deck here. I really like how it looks. I've driven a few different Velars over the years, including the high-powered one, as well as this one, which is a hybrid with the straight 6. So I think that's it's a turbo, and I think it's a pretty gutsy, might be overselling it, but it's an engine with some grunt to it. Sounds okay. It's got a good 8-speed automatic transmission. This one did get the full-on dad treatment. It had golf clubs, groceries, fishing poles, because it's that time of the year. We went fishing a couple times last weekend, and it had one of those kind of rubber mats in the back, which I personally like that. When you're going to put like a slimy fishing pole in the back of like a SUV that cost about $81,000, it's nice to have a little bit of a barrier there. So I like it. This is like I'd say a lukewarm, that's not the right, lukewarm taste, milk toast taste. Take is, I like it better than the Jaguar F-Pace. They share the same platform. I think this one just has more character. I like the F-Pace. A lot of great memories in it. We even had a long-termer. It was kind of like a dark blue, purple one. Curvy, looks like a Jaguar. But to me, this one does a very good job of being a Land Rover. It looks sleek. I think it's a reasonable alternative to a Range Rover. If you want to spend a little less money, you don't need quite as big a vehicle. I was in a very nice side of town last weekend in Birmingham, and I parked next to another Range Rover, and that driver was in the regular one. And I thought, you know what? My Velar looks a little bit smaller, but I don't feel any less significant. This is a good-looking SUV, nothing to be ashamed of. Which, again, to bring this together, the Evoque is not what I think you want to try to buy as a Range Rover buyer. I think you could reasonably say, I think I like the Velar a little bit more. I like the styling. I don't need all the space. Boom, let's go here. I don't need the Range Rover or the powerful Range Rover Sport. The Evoque, that's like the Ford Escort of Range Rovers. So I would not go down that road. So I don't know, have you been in a Velar lately?
No, it's been a while. I had one, I think, for maybe a night or two in a similar kind of handoff situation to what you're describing. But I have driven the Range Rover Sport with both the PHEV that we do get here and the PHEV that we don't get here, along with the standard i6. I believe it's an i6. But in either case, I'm familiar with the powertrain, and I 100% agree with your take on this versus the Evoque. The Evoque does not inspire me, to put it mildly. The Velar, I think, is a much more interesting kind of entry point. And to your point about the sport, I 100% agree. I think it's, kind of two forks off the same road, if you will. Like, you're going for either the performance or you're going for the style, and the Velar is the style. So
yeah, it's very well rounded. Going inside, this one it's a very dark interior, which normally I like, but it also had the kind of offsetting effect of making some of the materials, I think, look a little cheaper than they actually are. Because there's a fair amount of leather, perforated leather, but it all just kind of, blends together in a very British, austere fashion. This is Pivi Pro 7 is what they call their infotainment. It's fine. In my review, I currently have this kind of like solid middle of the pack. Land Rover says 80% of functions can be accomplished with like 2 touches or less. I would agree with that, except the touch screen is a little hard to actually get it to register. Like I found myself kind of punching at it to like get the seat heaters off because it was oddly cold this weekend. It was like a British weekend. So I had the seat heaters on. It's like 62 degrees. I don't care if it's almost July, but then I couldn't get them off. And then the sun was coming out and I'm like, it's getting a little too roasty toasty. So I found the screen to have a little bit of a, like it was a bad haptic handshake is how I would put it.
Sure.
But workable most of the time, better than say some of the Toyota, Lexus, Acura versions, not as good as, Mercedes, for example. Mercedes is not super easy, but you do pick up on it and it's colorful. This just was a little less usable. So, I mean, I guess you don't really buy a Jaguar or a Land Rover for the infotainment, but, that was part of it. Again, it was very much the juxtaposition of this versus the EQE that I had driven basically back to back. I did like that 3-liter. I believe it's an Ingenium. I think that's how they say it. It's a mild hybrid turbo. I think it's a step up because the lower levels of this, you could get a 2-liter 4-cylinder. I think that's a turbo. I don't think you want to do that if you could help it. I think pay more, finance it, do what you got to do, take a slightly worse lease deal, get the straight 6. It's powerful. I think it's solid. I don't think it's not crazy. Like when you put it in the sport or dynamic mode, you're not going to notice much, but it's got enough. It's almost like Rolls-Royce would say it's adequately powered with just a little bit more. So I like that as well. I think that's it. I also wrote in my review that, as the kids say, this has the Riz factor, tons of charisma. I mean, you pull up in a Land Rover, or I guess technically a Range Rover. I mean, nobody's going to say you don't look cool. It's definitely a good looking vehicle. This and Jaguar, that's a big part of their calling cards. I think is the cool factor they bring to like their owners, frankly. And it covers up some of the gremlins that they also offer, and that's how they've always been. So
I agree.
That's the Velar.
And like to your point about like going back to the whole style thing, like the infotainment, like while the functionality has issues, it's beautiful. Like they've done a great job with like the backgrounds and the graphics, but it's almost like it's kind of like you're looking at a presentation of an infotainment concept rather than a fully functioning infotainment system. And I think that's where like when you look at like the Mercedes MBUX graphics, like they're a little more simplified, a little more high contrast. It's a little more functional, but still very pretty. Not as pretty as what you get in a Jaguar Land Rover, but it works better and it's a lot easier to work with just because it's like you can identify the elements of the interface a little more easily. Like it's a more a functionality oriented experience.
Yeah, I for what it's worth, I don't hate the infotainment. Like I said, it's middle of the pack. There's some that I would be offensive to the point of like, I don't think I even want to buy that or recommend that vehicle. But in this case, I thought, you know what, it's reasonable. It's solid. It's probably not why you buy this thing.
Agreed.
Cool vehicle though. I remember when they launched the Velar and thought, well, how are they going to position this? And right now I still think it's weird the way they have sort of pulled back on the Land Rover overarching branding and made Range Rover, Defender, and then Discovery. I like from colloquially, I think that's how Range Rover and Land Rover owners refer to their vehicles. Take the Defender, take the Discovery. I don't think Discovery is strong enough to stand on its own as a sub-brand. Range Rover always, just from the way you would pronounce it, has a bit of overlap. In Defender, sure, Wrangler, but also a Wrangler's the epitome of Jeep. And I feel like Defender is also the epitome of Land Rover. So I don't quite get this branding exercise. I think it does no harm to leave a Land Rover badge on these vehicles, and it only helps. So I think you're trying a little too hard here to make it something that it doesn't need to be. So, but it's a nice Range Rover, to be proper. So tell me about our WRX. What did you lift it? You threw like a diff on it. What I'm due for it in a couple months here. So what's it going to look like with all this STI stuff?
I actually won our class in Pikes Peak. I forgot to tell you guys. It's been a busy couple of weeks.
So but, your expense reports are going to show up for that one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. They'll be slightly higher than my typical trip to Los Angeles or what have you. But yeah, I expect those coming shortly. But yeah, so I actually got a surprise message from Zach Palmer last week saying, "Hey, Subaru wants to pick up the WRX because we're going to put some STI accessories on it. Can we come get it tomorrow?" And I said, "Of course."
Absolutely.
Yeah, because the biggest gripes I've had about that car, the exhaust has been one of them. Like, it just doesn't really sound like much of anything. Like, it's burbly like a Boxer should be, but there's not really any volume to it. There's not any bass to it. It's just kind of there. And just like little things like that, take a car that's like a 9 out of 10 and get a little closer to a 10, right? But the exhaust was the big one, and that was one of the 3 items we got. So we got the STI accessory exhaust, we got the STI accessory short shift kit, and we got an STI front strut tower brace, which I didn't even notice the first time I opened the hood. It's tucked so neatly up behind the intercooler and everything. There's a tiny little black piece of plastic on it with the Cherry Blossom STI logo kind of hidden up under the cowling there, and that was it. So the second time when Zach told me it was there, I went back and was like, oh yeah, sure, there it is. That's not a stock piece, that's actually an accessory. So first impressions, the exhaust sounds significantly better. Nice deep tone, a little raspier when you get on it. It really just livens it up quite a bit. It's pretty much everything I was asking for before. So good news there. We'll have some exhaust clips so you guys can hear the before and after. If you'd like to check that out, we're going to run that this week. So that might actually be live by the time you're listening to this. So give that a look and a listen if you have a chance. The short shift kit does exactly what you expect. Honestly, this wasn't something I really had a gripe about with the WRX. I thought the shift throws were fine. Maybe not anything to write home about. But so they're a little tighter now, a little not really any notchier. It's pretty much the same feel as stock, which I really appreciate. Like, it's always nice when it doesn't, degrade the feel of it or the comfort level of it when you're getting a performance upgrade, which this kind of is. And I mean, the strut towers, that's a tough one to really to make a comparison on, given how little time I've had with the car since everything's been installed, and also the fact that every street in my vicinity is currently being ripped up by Wayne County for much needed repairs. So the ride quality and the kind of the roll feel of it are going to take a slightly longer test drive to really feel out. So hopefully we'll get all that into the update so you guys can check that out.
I'm very excited to sample the short throw shifting kit. Because when I think back to my time in like the old STI, that's definitely one of its calling cards. It adds a degree of challenge to operating the machine, which I think is cool. It just takes me back 10, 15 years. So can't wait to try that out. Have you gotten any sort of, have people asked you about some of these changes, just kind of looking at it or looking in it?
I've had the neighbor come over and ask about the sound because it is quite a bit louder when it starts up now. Not objectionably loud or anything like that. We're not talking about like you need good neighbor mode on a Coyote 5-liter or something like that. It's more subdued than that. But when I was out there getting the sound clips, my neighbors came around going, "What did you do to that thing?" So there's a little bit of bark to go with the bite. And but honestly, like I was expecting, like when Zach told me a bunch of STI accessories, I expected, branded stuff like an STI shift knob and an STI steering wheel sticker and like all that kind of stuff. But none of that. We went for straight function over form, pretty much top to bottom. We're not getting any power out of the catback exhaust, I don't think. I mean, there might be 1 or 2 horses getting freed by that, but I wouldn't count on it actually being a power adder. But the short throw and the strut tower brace should both actually improve the way the car drives. So looking forward to a little longer term drive with that. And we're going to get it into everybody else's hands here soon so that everyone else can sample it too. So
that should be good. Later on in the summer, we're planning a roundtable where we're going to discuss sort of the midway point, our feelings on the WRX. So this gives us even more to talk about. So I'm looking forward to that. That will be likely be a video, and we'll cut that in some way into the podcast, perhaps a special episode or a segment. But a vehicle like this, where we're all driving it, we'll play Top Gear. We'll hang out. We'll talk about it and see how it goes. So, yeah. All right. So that is our review section. Let's move on to the news section, which is kind of random this week. You spent some time seeing the new Rivians up close, though. So you saw them. What do you think?
I gotta tell you, the R2, the R3, and the R3X are really impressive in person. The R2, which is the smaller version of the R1S, so it's going to be their new kind of, I hesitate to call it a compact SUV, but leaning in that direction, a much smaller SUV than the R1S. That one they had effectively complete. We were actually able to sit in it, play around with the interior, and it really is a scaled down version of the R1S. It has the same kind of feel to the materials. You can tell that they're not quite as fancy as what you get in the R1S, but it's probably going to cost, I don't know, half to 2/3 as much, so it should be a little bit cheaper, right? But the packaging seems good. Backseat room seems excellent, and you still have that feeling of it being SUV-like. Especially, it helps that you got that battery skateboard underneath, which kind of lifts the whole body up a bit, kind of puts you on top of the chassis, and that kind of leans into that SUV feeling a bit. So that looks really promising, especially as kind of a not full volume play, but more of a volume play than the R1s. And then looking at the R3 and the R3X, we weren't allowed to get as hands-on with those because they weren't as complete as the R2, but they're the fun cars. So they're for us, they're not for the core audience really. So we can understand them, being a slightly lower priority than the stuff that they plan to actually sell a lot of and make a lot of money on. But the R3X, especially in person, looks insanely cool. I mean, just looking at it with the knobby tires on it and the slight lift to it, it just looks like a really angry old Golf Synchro or something like that. Just like, a VW Golf R reimagined as an all-wheel drive off-road monster instead of the more on-road, more composed version that we actually get from VW. I mean, granted, they've been rallying the Rs since R was a thing, and even back to the Synchro days. Like, that's nothing new for them. But the Golf Rs that we get are not marketed as rally cars, really. They're marketed as, an upscale hot hatch. And this is just like the rough and tumble, let's go off-road, the vibe it gave me was very similar to that 911 Dakar. It was just like, this is a car that you can do anything with. So really psyched for that. Out of everything that's coming, that's way up at the top of my list. But I was generally pretty impressed by just how complete these cars look. They're not planning to put the R2 or R3 or R3X into production until 2026, I believe, or at least late 2025 as a 2026 model. So we're still more than a year away from these being production models, and they already look like production models. So that's a great start, and it makes me really optimistic about what we'll see from these once we actually get a chance to drive them.
The R3X is, I think, on my short list of things as the 20s roll on, that if I needed a car, it would be something I would look at, especially if it's priced right. Just compare it in size, like to a car we all know. How big would you say the R3X is?
It's pretty much like compact hatchback. I mean, you're talking Golf or Veloster or pick your poison, Mazda 3. But yeah, it really feels like it's right in that wheelhouse. Like you walk up to it, it's shorter than I am by a decent amount. I'm 5'7", so it's not a big Wrangler high type thing or anything close to it. It's very much low to the ground and then also lifted up. So you got that kind of feeling of it being kind of chopped down and like a somewhat narrow greenhouse, but not as aggressively so as styling dictated over the past 10 years or so. So like the final version of it honestly should look pretty much exactly like the concept. Like looking at it, in person, there was nothing on there that went, oh, that's never going to make production. It looks like they could just build it as it sits. And I'm really hoping they do, because, I mean, we're talking about a 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, all-wheel drive, all-terrain setup. And, I mean, obviously they can put different tire and suspension packages on these. So the fact that this one is off-roady doesn't mean they can't do one that's more like the Golf R and intended to be kind of a more upscale, premium, on-road hot hatch. So, yeah, I'm psyched.
You know, Rivian really needs to keep getting this product message out, because they had a rough first quarter financially, kind of a rough start to the year. They recently did this tie-up with Volkswagen where it's software for cash, in simple terms. Volkswagen invests $5 billion. Rivian says, here you go. Here's some of our expertise in software-defined vehicles. And, you know, this allows Volkswagen to really catch up. And part of that kind of like, we would probably used to call this like the oily bits, only that's not how it is because it's electric, in the software space, where despite their size, they haven't been able to match what smaller companies have been doing. So I think it's a win-win for both, but that will, you know, again, give Rivian some cash to get to 2026 when this next wave of vehicles, which we all think look really amazing, come out. But that's only like, you know, one of like 3 phases, because then you've got the affordable mass market vehicle, which is coming after these R2, R3, RX, which will compete in that, you know, entry level area. They didn't name pricing. $25,000 is like what Tesla, the Jeep Renegade, Ford, and GM, everybody throws that term around. I don't honestly know if a Rivian will be that cheap, but it will be an affordable mass market vehicle. So that's like their 4-stage plan. With the first 2 being the R1S and the R1T, and you know, the Amazon vans. In the first round, those vehicles were just refreshed as well. So a lot going on with Rivian. It's going to be interesting to see how things play out and how you know, how their staying power. I think they have the money, they have the time now. Is it enough?
Yeah, agreed. And just looking at the VW tie-up too, like, we've been speculating about it, and others have. Like, VW has Scout, which is being treated kind of like a startup within the VW group. So they kind of do their own thing relative to the rest of the, you know, VW, Audi, Lamborghini, etc. So, you know, we're looking at this as, you know, Volkswagen's investing $5 billion in someone who's essentially building already competitors to this brand that they want to get off the ground in the US. And they've insisted time and time again that there is no ICE safety valve for Scout. It will be an electric brand, period. And given everything that's happening in the electric space right now, it's really hard to see how they scale a fresh brand like that up without some sort of overlap somewhere. And they've also been insisting that these are going to be on their own platform, the Scouts will. So, you know, you're looking at this company that's kind of doing what Rivian's already done, only they're playing with much bigger financial stakes. And at least they have the money to throw at it and fail. But at the same time, it's really hard to look at this agreement and not see an opportunity for scale between 2 companies that want to do essentially the same thing with the same parts. And the only thing that's really kind of a sticking point is that Scout keeps insisting, well, we're going to have, these are going to be a special body-on-frame truck platform. And strictly speaking, Rivian's trucks and SUVs are body-on-frame, kind of like the way the old XJ Jeep Cherokee's body-on-frame. Like, it's a unibody that sits on the skateboard chassis, and the chassis is essentially the frame. So if you're being super pedantic about it, nothing that Scout has said conflicts with the notion of them doing some sort of production partnership with Rivian down the road. So we could see Scout-based Volkswagens or Scout-based Rivians or Rivian-based Scouts. That has not been ruled out, but neither company is talking about it. They've said, you know, our operations, our production are remaining independent. We're building our own vehicles for the duration of this JV. We haven't said anything more than that. So we're kind of in a weird holding area with that aspect of this whole thing, but it just kind of feels like it almost has to happen. Like, it's just, you can't, you know, Volkswagen just can't leave that kind of scale on the table, and Rivian can't afford to leave that kind of scale on the table. So it seems like it's almost inevitable, but we don't have any real clear signposts yet.
I think that's a great way to sum it up. It does seem a touch like, as good as the defined, the nuanced points you lay out are, it also, if I'm either Scout especially or Rivian, it does feel like you're propping up a competitor, regardless of where you land on that sort of, platform, like what is what. I mean, I gotta believe I would cross shop Rivian and Scout. So it feels kind of like you're going to help out a competitor. And then does it become a zero-sum game? I don't know. You were one of the only people to actually get a comment out of Scout, though. So
right,
come down
no
blog.
comment. But
hey.
they did. We an email was sent and an email was received. That actually did happen. And yeah, to their credit, I mean, this is something that has been in the works for a while, and the Rivian deal would have been ongoing in the background while we were out at Scout checking out the groundbreaking in South Carolina earlier this year. So back then, obviously, they weren't talking about it, but it was in the background, at least at VW Group, not necessarily with Scout itself. So, when we were getting those comments from CEO Scott Keogh of Scout saying, we're this is a BEV brand, this is our body on frame goal, like, this is what we're doing. All of these negotiations were theoretically already ongoing, just not in that room. So,
all right. So hard fade over to Crazy Taxi, which I guess could be the word for the EV space right now.
Sure.
It's coming back. You might remember the old Sega game from the late 90s. I remember playing this a little bit. It was like, I believe, first launched in the arcades. Also, I was not quite arcading at that point. So for me, more of the Sega stuff was like NHL 94,
Yeah.
For me at this point, I had probably moved past the real video game. It was more like dorm stuff. So this specific one, I kind of missed, although I do remember it. Like, if you look at the pictures, you'll immediately remember what this game was. Did you play this at all?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I think I actually have a copy of Crazy Taxi that does not belong to me, now that I'm thinking about it.
You better return that.
Well, so I owned a Dreamcast console. My brother and I had, well, I say I owned it. My parents bought us one because I was 10, but we had a Dreamcast, and my friend had one too, and we would trade games from time to time, so I, hand off Soul Calibur and he'd give me Crazy Taxi. And I'm pretty sure that's actually where those two landed. I'm pretty sure he still has my copy of Soul Calibur, and I still have his copy of Crazy Taxi, but I still have my Dreamcast and he doesn't. So I'm winning here. So I could go play some Crazy Taxi tonight if I would like. But this looks pretty impressive. They're going to go for like an open world thing with multiplayer, and there's going to be police now, which I think is very interesting because that was one of the things as a kid where I was like, I mean, you couldn't kill people in Crazy Taxi. It was a family game. Like, no matter what you did, the people would always jump out of your way magically. You could never run anybody over. But you're driving like a complete tool in that game. And it's like, the cops really probably should be doing something about this. So I think that could add a fun mechanic to it where you can be fast, but you also shouldn't get caught. So it'll be fun. I mean, it's good, friendly, entertainment for everybody. It doesn't have the stigma of like a Grand Theft Auto or something like that, where it's like, oh yeah, we have to go murder somebody after this. No, you just go have a good time, get somebody to their destination as quickly as possible. And with the notion of multiplayer now, it actually makes a lot of sense because you should be competing with other cab drivers for your fares, right? It's not like you just go out and automatically get every fare and make all the money. So it's an interesting twist, but one that actually feels like it fits, and it can make a kind of classic arcade game a little more modern. So I'm kind of psyched. I think it'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing more and more of these sort of video games from the 80s, 90s, 2000s return on new platforms. Some of them are enhanced, some of them are extremely retro. So I think that's kind of a cool thing at this point, because whether you're more on the geriatric millennial side of things like me, or right in the millennial scope, or even some Gen Xers, the 30-ish-year-old video games are definitely, they have a soft spot in the hearts of a lot of people who also either still have them or have money to spend. So, I mean, that's probably why the RX3 from Rivian looks how it does.
100%.
All right. So let's talk about the Volvo EX30.
Yeah.
It is delayed.
Ooh.
What do you think of this?
This seems like quite a mess. So Jonathan Ramsey has written up the latest for us on this, and there might be even something new by the time you hear this. So check back on autoblog.com. But just looking at this, like, he compares it to kind of the Chevy Blazer EV situation, like where customers are having cars that are straight up bricked, or at least not functioning entirely while being driven, having to be stopped and restarted and stuff like that. So it's messy. And I mean, this was a car that we were expecting, well, we thought might arrive in late 2023. And Volvo didn't really do anything to dissuade us of that notion. So obviously that didn't happen, and it's obviously not here now, and we're hearing it's probably going to be next year at this point. And so like all the issues that are happening, we're hearing about this from Europe where it is on sale. So I guess we can just kind of be thankful that Europe is sort of acting as the beta test for this, and then hopefully we'll get a fully fledged working cheap EV out of this. So that's, I guess, the upside for American consumers who might have to wait. But I mean, hopefully it means you're waiting for a complete product. So
they are always very aggressive on price, and some of the early reviews are that it's a pretty solid vehicle. But I think the Blazer is an apt analogy. It seems like maybe they were a little too aggressive on the rollout. Like nobody said they had to hit that sort of deadline to get it out. Europe seems to be taking the brunt of whatever challenges technical challenges they're facing with it. A lot of people are pretty excited about it though. Just like what it could mean. It's, priced competitively. It looks pretty good, but it's also fairly basic. So I'm kind of curious what the execution will look like. I tend to think it'll be a very niche product in America because I feel like Volvo doesn't have quite the like crossover brand value to really get people into it at a value play. I think they're always going to kind of look at something like this as relatively narrow in scope. So we'll see. I mean, I guess vehicles like this, the more they kind of get delayed, you start to wonder, well, when is this ever going to actually happen?
Yeah.
It's not in the Mazda diesel territory yet, which took forever, and then didn't last. But it's on that same road. It needs to make a turn.
Yes, agreed.
All right, let's spend some money. Justin writes, "Hey, I just heard your podcast about the all-new Santa Fe. I also agree with you guys and love the new design. Just curious, do you guys think they would offer accessories like the concept version? If they would, I would definitely be interested for purchasing. Have a great day." Well, hey, Justin, thank you for writing. This is more like a theoretical spending my money, I guess. If they were to do this, then he might spend his money. I don't think that they will do this, actually, would be my guess. I think we've seen the XRT off-road version, and that's kind of what it is. And Hyundai and Kia don't have a really deep, portfolio of off-roading goods and things like that. But that concept was really cool that they showed us last year. So, I mean, what do you think?
I think it kind of reads to me like Hyundai kind of soliciting bids for a partner to do accessories, right? Like this is like these are the things they would like to do, and they set the car up so that it has those the little things on the C pillars are there where they mounted all the stuff. So like most of the system seems like it made its way to production. So I think like Hyundai would love to do something like this because branded merchandise is basically free money, and there's been stories this past week, I think both Ford and GM, how much money they're making on just merch and licensing versus actually producing vehicles. So this strikes me as something that they would really like to do. Whether a partner comes out and says, "Hey, we want to do these with you," because that's how it works in most of these spaces. You look at Jeep and Bronco; both of them have big partnerships. GM too, like all of them basically work with American Expedition vehicles to some degree or another. AEV builds parts for virtually anything you can take off road, and they have official partnerships with a lot of the manufacturers. Hyundai, of course, doesn't play in the hardcore off-roading space, so they would need somebody who wants to come along and produce accessories for a car like this, and do an OEM partnership. And I think they would love to find someone to do that. I just don't think they have a dance partner yet.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at that original XRT concept, which came out last August, almost a year ago, that was really cool. It was really jacked up. The tires were big. the whole like vehicle had a different vibe to it. Like they did some things, I would say even to like the sheet metal that make it look different. I actually can't even tell. It's such a different vibe. The way the vehicle, the ride height is different. Those are definitely different aftermarket fender flares as I look closer. It's tough to do all that from the factory and then try to unless you have that aftermarket partner. And frankly, to me, that was just a concept vehicle to kind of drum up an off-road halo. So I guess sorry to disappoint you, Justin, but the best you can do is just the XRT trim, which we did drive. We liked it, but it doesn't take it quite as far as you probably would like it to, I guess.
Yeah, and I did reach out to Joel Stockdale, who was the Autoblog editor who drove the XRT and the rest of the Santa Fe lineup when Hyundai launched it earlier this year. And he said they didn't bring up anything about that during any of the product presentations. And usually, if you're going to launch with branded accessories, you want to tell people about it because you would love for people to go and order cars with them installed. So clearly not something that's a priority for them immediately. But of course, that doesn't take it off the table entirely. So,
all right. Sounds good. Well, that's all the time we have this week. Short, tight show. We hope you all have a great holiday weekend. If you're listening to this after, the 4th of July, hey, that's what the podcast is here. We're here to help you grill and walk your dog and clean the house, whatever you might do after the holidays. Send us your Spend My Monies. That's podcast@autoblog.com. If you like the show, please like, share, and subscribe. Give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get the show. Shout out to our producer, Eric Meyer, for making us sound good, or at least we try to sound good. Be safe out there. Thanks for hanging out this week, Byron, and we will see you next week.